Kyle, let's take, since we're talking about difficult situations, let's take a more difficult one. Let's say you have a case where HMR has funded the amount of $400,000. And the case is moving along. And for whatever reason, the case goes south.
Sure.
And the lawyer calls you up and says, we have a problem. The top dollar they will pay is, let's just say $600,000.
Sure.
Now, $600,000, we have your lien, we have other liens, we have other outstanding medical expenses from other sources. There are costs of litigation. There are all of these things, and we're trying to get some amount of money to the client. Tell us the steps you go through at HMR to first assess the situation, and then give us some example of how you might handle a given situation when that happens. In other words, where there's going to be some money, but not enough to go around to pay everybody fully and completely.
Sure. Well, I think we get into every case with the mindset that, you know, if it's in litigation, the attorney's got a 40% fee. If it's not in litigation, it might be a third. That in most instances, trying to put a third in the client's pocket, and then a third is left for, you know, the medical expenses that somebody incurs. So we kind of go through that a third type thing, unless it's in litigation, trying not to get over our skis. And we use that formula quite often when we look at underwriting a case, you know. People often tell me, you know, hey, there's $1 million in coverage. Well, just because there's $1 million in coverage doesn't mean you're getting $1 million for this case. And so the example I would give you is I actually had a case where we funded 12 months at an inpatient brain injury facility in Texas. And the bills were $600,000 for 12 months of inpatient care. Unfortunately, what came out in the mediation was the fact that the guy actually had a history of a prior fall that nobody had discovered, where he hit his head, had a hemorrhage, and it didn't necessarily take away from the fact that that accident that we were funding was catastrophic, but it kind of diminished the value of that case. And I can remember the lawyer came to me and he said, look, you know, I know you, I owe you X, but you know, they're only offering, you know, $2 million right now. I need you to take a $200,000 cut. And it's not a perfect scenario. But what we try to evaluate in an instance like that is, you know, who are the lawyers? What is the potential that there is longevity in this relationship? Is the circumstances legitimate? And if all those things line up, you know, in that case, I ended up giving the guy the reduction, and now he's probably somebody that I do, you know, 10 or 12 cases with every month. And so some of it is about not being short-sighted in that moment and knowing that, hey, it's an unforeseen set of circumstances, and sometimes it's not that way, but we try to be pliable along the way, because the difficult part in it is you don't want to set a precedent that, hey, every time I fund this case for you, you know, you can come and ask me for, you know, a 50, 60, 70% reduction, because then I won't be in business anymore. It's
Well,
kind
but
of
it sounds like in that case, though, HMR made a wise business decision. HMR made a wise marketing decision.
Sure.
HMR really went out of its way to do right by the client and the lawyer. So that was a Win, 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 win.